The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to an introduction to the OneSport technology system powered by IMG Sports Technology Group. Today's session is just to take you through the new functionality and layout of the system and give you a brief introduction to some of the functionality. The first thing you'll notice is that we now sign in with an email address as opposed to a username. We still obviously use a password to access the system, but this will also be if you are a member of a sporting organisation. It'll be the same login that you will use to access your member profile as well. Once logged in, you will see a listing of the different organisations that you are attached to as an administrator. Me being an employee of IMG Sports Technology Group, I have access to all organisations, but you as a club administrator or association or state administrator might have access to multiple organisations as well, and these will show in this first screen. If you only are an administrator for one organisation, there would only be one organisation in this screen. So if I click into the IMG STG console, this is now the new back-end interface that you as administrators will be seeing. We have tried to make this as clean as possible to make it easy to navigate it for all our administrators. So across the top, similar to what we used to have, we have our modules. So at the moment activated is the Member Desk module. This will house your membership information, your financial information, so there is no longer a subscriptions menu. That now sits within your Member Desk menu. We have Shop Desk, so that's been activated. We will have another webinar dedicated to the Shop Desk module, so we won't go into that too much today. And then we have our utilities, so this used to be our tools menu, which now houses your email templates and your documents, which also include images, so they're both found in the same area now. And then we have our administration area, so like the old classic system, the ability to choose or have your users set up within the security area. User fields are the different options that you can have your members select, whether they're Mr., Mrs., date of birth, those sorts of fields that they can enter into, as well as your custom information as well, which we'll go through a little bit later on. So going through the members area, similarly to the old system, we have the left-hand menu navigation, and the first option we have here is your members, and as it suggests, this will be where you'll find your member information. So this basically you have a listing of your members in this section, so last name, first name, their email address, the membership that they belong to, whether they're active, so before we used to have the green tick or the red cross for inactive, this has now just been changed to the word to keep it consistent across the system, whether they're financial or not, so a quick reference check there. And then we have the actions button. So this is another thing that you'll find quite consistent over all the modules and different menus across the system, is a consolidated actions button that you can utilize. So as we do up the top, in actions to add the member or export the members, before we used to have the buttons listed across the top of the screen up here. So if we were going to look at a member, so I'll choose Jonathan Walsh here, we can see that he belongs to IMG STG console. He's an active member. We can change him to an inactive member should we need to, for whatever reason, if he's been suspended or he's no longer a part of our club. And we can see that he's not financial. So if we choose to view this member, we can first see his personal details as you would have in the old classic system, his contact information if this had been completed, his forms. So this is the new custom field section. So we now have the ability to attach multiple questions to forms which can be specified to the particular membership a person purchases. So you're able to have as many questions as you want, and they can be syndicated down again like they used to be from the higher entities. In the Access tab, so as I mentioned when we first logged in, we now have the unique identifier of each member being the email address. So this is in line with different online functions such as Facebook and LinkedIn, where your email address is your unique identifier. And as administrators, we've now also made the change that you can't see the passwords of each of your members, or administrators for that matter. So this information is all encrypted. If you do forget your password, or your members forget their password, they are able to reset this through a forgot my password function, which sends out an email with a password reset, which is activated for 30 minutes until that expires, and they need to do that process again if they've missed that 30-minute window. We can then see the membership information for a member, so whether they're active, whether they're financial. We can see the member types that they're attached to. So this is another difference from the old classic system, whereby you could only have one member type. You can now have multiple member types attached to a member, as well as different membership numbers as well. In the subscriptions tab, we can see the subscriptions that this person has subscribed to. So there could be inactive in this case, so Jonathan hasn't paid this subscription off, or they could be active. If the subscription was active, his financial status would then also be updated to be financial as yes, or active as well. We then have linked members, so where there are situations of families within your database. As I mentioned, the email is the unique identifier of a member now. So if a family has the same email address for, in this case, Jonathan and Mary, Mary is now secondary to Jonathan and linked to her, linked to his profile, sorry. So Mary won't have an email address against her at this point in time. This is something we will be implementing, but she is linked to Jonathan as part of their family registration process. We then have organisations, so Jonathan's attached to the IMG STG console, but he could also be a member of, for example, Footscray Hockey Club. If he had more than one organisation that he was linked to, this would be listed here in the cases of dual registration and so forth. This again is a fundamental difference to the old classic system, where we might have had duplicate members if they were parts of different clubs. Now we have one member record, and they are able to be attached to multiple organisations within the system. If we refer back to the Actions tab, here we can see our notes, our history. We can edit a member, add linked members to that particular member. We can add subscriptions. We can send emails or go back to the member listing. So these functions, again, now consolidated within the Actions menu, instead of having all the buttons that we used to have in the classic system listed above the member record. So just trying, again, to streamline and neaten up the visibility of the screen. So if we go back to the listing, we can then also, if we go back to the left-hand menu, go to the member types. So member types works very similarly to the way that it did in Classic, in that it can be syndicated from your higher entities. In this case, it can't be created at the club level, so they've been syndicated down. As I said, a member can be attached to multiple member types, so whether they're an adult, they might also be a master, or they could be a coach as well as a senior player, those sorts of things. So there's the ability to attach multiple member types to a member. Your member groups works in a very similar fashion to the way it did in Classic. Again, another way to categorise your members, whether you want to put your members into their team groups or their committee members or volunteers, those sorts of things, very similar to how it worked in Classic. We then have the subscription type. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the subscriptions and your financial information is now housed within the member desk menu. It's not a separate menu on its own. So your subscription types can be created at your club level, or again can be distributed down from other levels, which would be indicated by this little tree diagram if it's come down from a higher entity. We will have another webinar to go through how you can set up your subscriptions and so forth as well. Going further down the menu is your financial tab. This houses obviously your financial information. In the first menu item we have your payments. So these are all the paid transactions that have gone through the system, whether they've been cash or credit card, they've been recorded. We then have a listing of the refunds that have been processed, if any. And then you have your subscriptions. So your subscriptions can be your paid, unpaid transactions, and you can identify these by the status. So if they're inactive, they haven't been paid. If they're active, they have been paid. So it's a full list of the generated transactions within the system, whether they've been paid off or not. So people, in the case of these inactive ones, may have registered online but not paid at the point of the transaction, at the point of registration, so they're going to come in later and potentially pay at that point. You then have your settlements. So again, same as your Classic system, your settlements run on a weekly schedule. However, they are settled on a Friday instead of a Monday, or processed on a Friday, I should say. So they will appear in your bank account the following Monday or Tuesday, depending on your financial provider. We then have your email management tab. Different, I guess, to the Classic system is that your email management only relies on your distribution lists. So you have to create a number of different lists to send emails out. The only other way to do that is individually to a member, is to send out an email that way. So you then have your campaign management. So very similar. You can see the name of your campaign, when it was sent, who it was sent to, and from email, as well as a number of statistics on hard bounce, soft bounces, and so forth as well. We then have your portal settings. So this is the front end that you can design for your members. So in the first instance, we've got the title that usually appears in this little tab up here of what you're calling your membership portal, whether you're accepting registration, so you switch that on if you're letting people register online or pay online, and then the relevant URL link for your portal. In the Welcome tab is the information that you're going to place on the first screen that your members see when they go to register using the portal. You've got the ability to add in images, select a theme, and choose whether the membership number process you're using and whether you want a confirmation to pop up on the screen once a person has registered through the system. So just to show you an example of what the portal looks like, this is our IMG STG portal. There's the ability to add in extra pages, so that might be information about your actual organisation, a link to your website and so forth. You've got the registration button, so for new members, and then you've got the login button as well. If we return back to the console, so here's the section additional pages where you can add those additional pages. So as I said, there was an About Us and an IMG STG website page as well on the front end portal. If we go to the administration menu across the top, the questions listing is where you set up your relevant custom questions. So As I mentioned earlier, you are able to set up as many questions as you would like. Now you're not restricted by the format of question or the number of questions that you would like to ask your members. These can again be syndicated down from a national, state, association level as well, so always good to see what they are asking your members so you're not doubling up on information. But you've got the ability to ask those different questions and then attach them to your relevant form. So a form could be for your seniors, and you're going to ask them particular questions that you would ask senior members, and you might have a junior registration form that you have questions about their parents and guardians and so forth like that, where they need permission from a person over 18 to sign off on their information. So you can now distinguish different sets of questions by the member type that gets asked of a member when they're registering through the system. So that's a brief introduction into the OneSport technology system. We will be having some further webinars, as I mentioned, about how you can set up your registrations, your subscriptions and so forth, as well as your shop in the coming days and weeks. So stay tuned for them, and hopefully this has been of benefit in the meantime.